How's it going, everyone? This is the Go Long podcast here with an old friend of the show, Eric Wood. This is, God, your third or fourth appearance, I want to say. You're a recurring guest. It's great to see you.
Yeah, I don't normally agree to do that many on a specific podcast, but you guys do such a great job. I enjoy our time together. I'm down to do this anytime.
Oh my God, hey, we're happy to have you, and obviously have some awesome stuff to get into. Something I'm a little familiar with. You're in the middle of the virtual book tour, which never really ends, right? You start it, and it just kind of keeps going on and on. But everybody out there should get the book. Tackle what's next. Own your story. Stack wins and achieve your goals in business and life. It's been out since October 11th, I want to say. Is that right, Eric?
Yes, it was the 11th or the 12th.
Awesome. So available everywhere, I'm guessing. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you want people to buy this book specifically?
Yep, absolutely. Nope, any of those work.
Awesome. Well, to be honest, I haven't read it yet. I can't wait to dive in, but I feel like I got a good teaser listening to your podcast because you've created such a unique space in all the shit that's out there in the podcast world, the sports media world, your lane of just talking to guys about what you do when you're done playing, really, and beyond football, just finding a purpose in life. It's just always fascinating. You always find some awesome guests to talk to, but yeah, just take us through like the process. How did you get into like the book world and kind of bringing everything you do on the podcast to write a book?
Well, I'd say for probably the last 10 or 15 years, I've been an avid reader. So I'm a fan of books. I like to read and I'm into that. But I would have never considered myself an author. I didn't go to school to be an author. I did, as a political science major, I wrote a lot of papers, but I would never consider myself an author. And I wouldn't have thought to myself that I should even be one to write a book. Like if there was a Buffalo Bill that I played with that should write a book, it should be Terrell Owens or Ryan Fitzpatrick or Kyle Williams. Like, who am I to write a book? And you mentioned my podcast, What's Next with Eric Wood, and I've had so many guests that have given me life lessons, nuggets, tidbits, and when I was thinking about compiling them all together, it just made sense to me to put it in a hardback, to put it into writing, and that as opposed to doing some blog entries or whatever it may be, let's do a book and let's put it in writing. And this book to me is something that tells a lot about my story, but it honors so many that have poured into me along the way. These personal development principles that are in the book, and they're supplemented with stories about coaches and seasons and games. So it's for sports fans and not sports fans, but those lessons apply to anybody. It's amazing that, yes, I went through a traumatic neck injury that led me to ending my dream of continuing to play football, but how much that applies in the next steps applies to a stay-at-home mom whose kids are leaving the house, a longtime CEO that is leaving his business, someone who's sitting there thinking, man, I just feel like there's more for me out there career-wise, or whatever it may be. And then, it's essentially talking about transitioning into your next chapter of life, even if that's from a traumatic event or not. Well, so many of us are in a transition because of COVID anyways, that it seemed like an appropriate time to write this book as well.
I love it. I mean, I don't got to tell you, you probably know so many former players that just feel hopeless when they lose the game. I mean, football is, you are the perfect person to write this book because football is just different than any other profession in America. And I'm just blown away by it and we've talked about it. You go to work in training camp and you're beating the shit out of your coworkers, and then you go into the cold tub and you're talking about each other's kids. Like it's not normal. But
no,
I mean, when
right.
you're in that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say, like, we're given all these incredible lessons for life, but it's often so hard to apply them because we've never had to make a schedule ourselves. We've never had to evaluate what our gifts are, because our gifts we've used are our athletic talents that allow us to play in the National Football League. And so it becomes a tough transition to the tune of 86% of guys that exit the NFL within 5 years are either broke or divorced. Like, let's get that statistic
Holy
down. Like,
crap.
let's do something about it. And once that was published and there's awareness around it, that's step one. Okay, well, now let's give people a blueprint for that. And my blueprint is not perfect either. You know, this is my story, and I feel like it applies to just so many others out there, regardless of pro sports or not. But you mentioned the NFL is a different animal. You're in this high pressure environment, but everything's done for you. I mean, from the second you walk into the facility in the morning, you're told what to do, what to eat, how to train, what plays to run. Now it's on you to put on the effort, or else you're going to be out of a job very quickly. But your whole year is structured, and
Yeah.
so you get out of the NFL and you're just kind of you can just kind of float through life if you're not careful.
And it's something that you've done literally your entire life. Think about age 5, 6, when you put on the pads for the first time, to modify to JV to varsity to college to the pros. It's like it's your identity in every possible way. And I mean, we've had Richie Incognito here on this podcast. He was unbelievably open about his issues with losing that structure, right? I mean, there's your perfect example where he loses that structure of that schedule, and things kind of went haywire. He gets it back with the Raiders, and I think this time maybe you can fill us in too. I mean, he seems to be in a great place. He set things up, and he's tackling what's next, and like he's kind
Yeah.
of putting your philosophy to practice now. And what a case in point example of like here's how it can go wrong, and here's how you can make it go right.
Yeah, Richie's in a great place right now, and I'm so glad that America is becoming so much more open to accepting the fact that people are born with mental health issues, and we all make mistakes. And yes, Richie's done things he's not proud of. So have I. So have you. I mean, it is what it
Yeah.
is. His are all out in the spotlight. There's a video of himself that someone could show you at all times, or a tweet, or whatever it may be. And so Richie's are much more public, so they get brought up a lot more than maybe mine or yours at times. But that being said, Richie's in a great place. But Richie and I also work with the same executive coach. The same guy helped us in transitioning out and helped us even towards the tail end of our careers on leadership and accountability and all that. And so Richie's in a really great place, and I love seeing it. I got to spend some time with him in Buffalo. I guess it was about 3 weekends ago now. And
Yeah.
I say he's in a great place because, some guys that have issues that are public, well, then they're in a great place, but they're just zero fun, can't have a drink, can't stay up
Yeah.
past 10 o'clock because, oh no, what could happen? Richie's in a great place because he can still have a beer. He can still be one of the guys. He can still cut up and enjoy himself. He's just mentally crystal clear right now.
Having a purpose, right? A reason to get up in the morning and be happy when you're getting up in the morning. Is it that simple? Like, whether it's Richie, yourself, anybody that leaves this crazy world that is the NFL, like, it's just finding a reason to be happy and get up in the morning.
Yeah, and I would say that our purpose, where we find fulfillment, is often in the service of others. And that's a concept that's pretty strong in the book, is evaluating yourself. What are your gifts? What are your core values? What's your routine going to be on a daily basis? Okay, now how are you going to bring value to others and serve others? And you'll say, well, how does that give me money to put food on my table and provide for my family? Well, when you provide value to people, you're going to be compensated often. And when you bring value to valuable people, you're often really highly compensated. And so that's a lot of the consensus of the book, is figuring out where you're gifted to bring value and service to others, which will in turn bring you fulfillment and contentment in life and put you in a great space and likely create an income as well.
Man, I think we lose sight of that so much in life. Just helping other people is going to make you feel better about yourself, isn't it? Just in general.
Yeah, and like, okay, so Ty, you're gifted as a writer, you're gifted in communication, you're gifted in conducting interviews, you're gifted in those spaces. Well, you provide entertainment to people, you provide value to people's lives. And when I think of the radio broadcast that I do, I just think there's so many people listening out there that had a tough week. Like, me and Murph and Sal, let's have some fun on this broadcast. And even if it's a preseason game, let's have some fun and bring some joy to people that their respite, like their break in the week, is Buffalo Bills football. Well, let's provide a great product here today to uplift them. And by just focusing that mindset through a broadcast, will put you in a mindset to be able to do your best, as opposed to, all right, here we go again. We got a preseason game, doesn't mean anything. It's going to be a long one. Hopefully it doesn't go to overtime. Thank God they canceled the overtime rules in the preseason, this and that. Oh my gosh, we got another replay. Well, when you switch that mindset, it can really help you in those instances.
I mean, holy shit, you had to stay positive through your playing career. I mean, it's you had some rough seasons, man. I can remember being on the beat, talking to you. This things kind of start to go south in December, and I mean, you were challenged as a player year in and year out to stay positive when you had every reason to be negative on some of those Bills teams.
Right. I mean, I didn't play in a meaningful Week 17 game until my final year in the league. I mean, every year our playoff hopes were crushed well before the end of the season, well before it was supposed to. And so, yes, and I'll say this, and it's easier for some than others, but I got one scholarship offer to college. The fact that I became a first-round draft pick and got to play 9 years for the Buffalo Bills was a total blessing to me. And through morning gratitude practices and whatnot, I generally walked into the facility in an awesome mood, fired up to be there, fired up to be able to go play for the Buffalo Bills, and honestly be on a mission to break this playoff drought. And thank God we did before my career ended, or else I would have been in a bad place because of it, because that was my goal for so long, was, okay, we got to break the playoff drought and then we can go chase the Super Bowl. But we can talk every year about how our goal is to make the Super Bowl or to win the Super Bowl, but we got to break this playoff drought first. Like, we got to at least get to the show.
Doesn't it feel like light years ago? I mean, this team has been elites now for a few years, and it's like that wasn't that long ago. Where just being on the In the Hunt graphic at Thanksgiving was an accomplishment for the Bills.
Oh, the In the Hunt times. I know. And now, and I hate to be like overly realistic because drama sells and you need storylines, but the Bills are sitting at 6-3 right now as we record this. They've dropped 2 games in a row, and by most publications in Vegas, they're still the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl. They turned the ball over at the highest clip per drive in the NFL, and they're 27th in the league in touchdown red zone scoring touchdowns. They've been without countless starters on defense for the entire season, and they're still sitting at 6-3 with 3 losses by a combined 8 points to all teams with a winning record. Like, this team is fine. There's a reason that Vegas is still betting on the Bills, because turnovers are generally one of those things throughout a season that even themselves out. I mean, Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They start the season 8-0, and they had 3 turnovers on offense and forced, I believe, 18. And so, you have a plus 15 turnover margin through 8 games. I'd be willing to bet a good amount of money that they're not going to end up at plus 15 at the end of the season. And so, that being said, if those averages come back to normal as far as scoring touchdowns in the red zone and taking care of the football, this is a team that is they're going to dominate. They're really, really good, and they're deep. And a lot of these injured guys are going to come back, and this is a roster that can win a Super Bowl.
Any concerns with where Josh Allen is at? Just late in games, some bizarre throws. Jim, Monis, had a great breakdown on the podcast earlier this week where he could kind of see what maybe Josh was seeing on some of these interceptions, where it looks crazy and bizarre and outlandish to us, like something straight out of a JV game that we would do, but to him it wasn't that bad, and he thinks he'll be able to clean it up. When you really look at some of these turnovers, what did you see?
I think the same, and we could go turnover by turnover, but there's times where Josh has got to make better decisions. There are times where his competitiveness and his willing to take chances gets the best of him. But Buffalo also went about 100 straight starts by a quarterback without even throwing for 300 yards in a game. And now, if Josh doesn't throw for over 300 a game, we're surprised. I want a quarterback that allows his guys to go try and make plays down the field. And sometimes you turn the ball over. Now, the one where he's trying to spike the ball and Jair Alexander picks it, absolute no. The interception at the end of the game against the Vikings, like, he should not have thrown that ball. He should have checked it down, keep the drive going. It's only 2nd and 10. That's not a desperation play. The turnover before that in the end zone to Patrick Peterson, it's not a great decision, but it's not the end of the world. You're sitting at 4th and 2 and you're about to run out of bounds. Like, you're going to throw the ball away. And I appreciate that Josh is willing to take chances in those types of situations, because I talk about this with Ryan Fitzpatrick all the time. A lot of quarterbacks won't do that because, oh my gosh, the stats will look bad. Josh doesn't care about stats. Josh cares about winning football games. And so you never want to pull the reins on him too much. Just over time, he's going to continue to develop and make those great decisions. I generally despise Josh Allen takes from the national media because everybody wants to go back and be right on their pre-draft evaluation of Josh Allen. But I think Steve Young said something great the other day before Monday Night Football. He said that one thing that was hard for Steve as a quarterback, because he was pretty mobile as well, is when he was running the football a lot and all your adrenaline's going, you run over a linebacker. Then on that next play, especially when the game's on the line, to say the check down might be the best option here.
Yeah.
You're so hyped in those moments, especially as a mobile quarterback, and you're running around, you're out of breath, to calm yourself down. And to me, that was like one time that a national media member, and I say national media, I'm grouping a lot of people in that have had some bad takes on Josh, but that one I thought made a lot of sense to me.
That does. Yeah, I mean, because you're a running back at that point. You're and when you're Josh Allen, you're seeking contact in a lot of ways. You're going to lower the shoulder. You're going to pop up and pump a fist and get everybody jacked up. It's tough to just kind of dial that down and think, okay, all right, actually let's hold the ball, and then there's Devin Singletary in the flat, and let's just dump it down. It's right. Kind of, I don't know. That's where it gets tough if you're Sean McDermott, Ken Dorsey. You don't want to neuter that, right? You don't want to water down Josh Allen. You want him in full. So how do you find that balance, you think?
Yeah, and someone asked me earlier in the week, they said, who should be that guy for him? Is that like that calms him down? Is that someone you hire? Is that a Matt Barkley that's on the sideline, or is it a coach? I said, no, that's Josh. Like, Josh is responsible for Josh. And yes, you could have a head coach say something, you could have guys say something, but Josh is responsible for Josh. And I'm fully confident in that. He's managed his game throughout his career in such an incredible way, eliminating mistakes year after year and those not showing up a ton. And yeah, a turnover in the red zone in Kansas City when they fake a jet sweep, and then he ends up pitching it to Isaiah McKenzie when he gets stuck and Isaiah's not ready for it. Like, that stuff happens when you're a playmaker. It is what it is.
Right. I mean, I grew up watching Brett Favre, and it was part of the fun. And you didn't know what the hell was going to happen in the fourth quarter. Right.
Right.
And I'd almost rather have that quarterback that, I mean, if you're down, you're not out because he's going to gunsling you back, where, yeah, things might get crazy for all the wrong reasons as well. But you got to try. You got to try it. I think that's a big difference between like a Favre and a Rodgers too, where Rodgers is obviously a Hall of Fame quarterback. And if he gets a lead, he's going to protect that lead. But if not to say he hasn't had comeback wins, but Favre is more apt to just take a chance into double coverage when you need to take a chance, just like Josh Allen is if he needs to. That's a good quality to have a lot of times.
Yeah, and to tie a bow on it, as Brett Favre got older, he won Super Bowls, and because he learned to manage all of that. And hopefully this year is the year that Josh Allen, continues to develop throughout the season, make the proper decisions, but where he doesn't see the safety behind the defensive end on the first drive against the Jets. Like, that's likely not happening again, but it happened in that loss. He he never threw anyone under the bus. I'm assuming it's a miscommunication at receiver in him when he threw the ball right to Sauce Gardner. Like that's likely not happening again. A lot of these that you're seeing from Josh, these interceptions as of late, these turnovers, you just assume they likely won't happen again. You assume a fumble on the goal line on a QB sneak doesn't happen again. And that's where me and in Vegas as well backing me still thinks the Bills are the best team in the NFL.
But then if they lose to the Browns or the Lions, we can freak out, right? Then it's time to panic.
Yeah, I was gonna say yes, unless the weather plays a huge
Yeah,
factor this
it's gonna be
weekend.
insane.
And yeah, if the weather plays a huge factor, then it's kind of like the Patriots game last year. You chalk it up as the weather screwed it all up, and then you go beat the crap out of New England at New England in the regular season, and you blow the brakes off of them in the postseason.
Well, then you got to hope that you don't get a snowstorm in the playoffs. So, too, we're wind in the playoff. I don't know. The elements, you got to own them here in Buffalo to an extent.
I'll say this: if the season was on the line and it's a playoff game and there's snow, I may want Josh Allen over most players in the NFL with his ability to run the football and how physical he is and how athletic he is. I mean, I know he's not like Shady McCoy athletic, but as great of an athlete as he is, there's not many guys you would rather have the ball in his hands.
You're right. And at that point, you're not going to hold anything back. You know, if he's
Right.
got to run 30 times in a January playoff game, you're doing it. Who cares?
Right. Exactly.
Just to bring a full circle, because we talked way back when, and I think it was right when, maybe it was right after you retired, you ran into Josh at a golf event, and you're thinking, damn it, like I wish I had a little more football left because this guy's going to be special. But what was your transition really like out of the game? Did you have any rough moments, depressing moments where like you weren't sure what your purpose was going to be after you lost the game, because it wasn't even like it was your decision. It was taken from you.
Yeah, I mean, there were some definite lows throughout the process when the Bills got back to playing football in the spring, and I wasn't there for the first time, and I missed going back there. It's like the first day of school when you go back and you get to see all the guys. Like I missed that. I missed going to training camp. I was one of those sick individuals that loved training camp, but I try and be sensitive when I say that because I never went into training camp where I was always worth more if they cut me than if they even kept me on the team. Like that's how my contract was always structured. And so I knew I was going to be on the roster. And so to me, I could go to the training camp and work on things to try and get better as opposed to stress every day if I was even going to be on the team. And so, but I loved training camp. You know, when the Bills started that regular season in 2018, I missed being out there, and I still miss it at times. It's great, but this next chapter has been full of blessings, and so there's been low moments, but I also had incredible support around me that not everybody has. You know, I'm married with kids and I have incredible family. I have a foundation of my faith. Like I had so many people pouring into me through that time that my low moments weren't quite as low as I'm sure some others that are isolated and maybe have isolated themselves throughout their career where they hit a further rock bottom. But real quick on that story about Josh, you know, I meet him at the Masters in 2018, so it's prior to the draft, and and there was a lot of quarterbacks there, you know, all the CAA guys and everybody. I won't name names who else was there, but people out there can research those guys if they want to. But I texted Brandon Bean when I left, and I said, "Hey, I was with a bunch of the quarterbacks and this and that." I said, "Here's the deal. I've watched zero Wyoming film, I've only watched these quarterbacks from when I've seen them on TV." But I said, the alpha male is Josh Allen. He's the alpha of the group. He commands the room. He's a guy's guy. Take it for what it's worth. I was in a room full of NFL players, and Josh Allen's the dude. It is what it is. Like the other guys aren't yet. and that impacted their decision to draft him zero, but maybe just gave them some peace of mind that I gave them that assessment. And I was extended before my last year to be a veteran center for a young quarterback that they were going to draft. Like that was the assumption. We had Tyrod Taylor, but I was going to be that guy. For me to have kind of left my piece of myself in the league with a guy like Josh Allen would have been awesome. who knows what happens? Maybe I get hurt severely and I can't even play golf anymore, pickleball, or play with my kids. Like, you can only play that, you can play that game so much. But it's been fun to get to know Josh over these years now, and I mean, he's a special dude, and I mean, he's still beloved in the Wood household. My little boy, for his school pictures last year, took his school pictures in a Josh Allen jersey. You don't see that a ton in Louisville, Kentucky.
So what did you pick up on then? Like what popped that made you think this is the alpha of the group? It's Josh Allen.
I mean, when people ask you to describe that it factor and you could never describe it, you're like, he's charismatic, he's confident, he can hold a conversation. The other guys kind of trail along to him, especially the young guys. Like, that's Josh. And you see it now. I mean, he's fun, he's charismatic, he has no ego, he treats people right. Kind of the same things you see now with him having a different handshake for every guy on offense, the way he treats people in the media, the way he goes and gives back at the hospital during his time off. He's funny in commercials. He doesn't take himself too serious. Like, that's the dude he was in 2018 and still is to this day. And those characteristics you could pick up on. Like, guys gravitate towards people with that type of personality.
What did Bean text back, or what was it, a text you said, or you called him?
Yeah, it was a text. I can't remember exactly what he said back, but like something along the lines like, we've noticed that too, or something.
So all the Bills fans listening, give Eric Wood all of the credit in the world for identifying the greatness inside of Josh Allen and, compelling Brandon Beane of the Bills to take him over Josh Rosen. So
well, I'll say this. When Josh Allen won over the Bills, they were meeting him, I want to say in Denver, or maybe they were meeting him in Wyoming, and he was flying back into Denver, then into Wyoming. His flight gets jacked up. So the Bills are there. They're flying in on Air Pagula, and Josh is trying to get to this workout and meeting with the Bills organization, and everybody's going to be there, ownership and all. And Josh drove through the night to get there, still worked out and did well, hung out with them for dinner, met them for breakfast again the following day. And they were like, this dude's pretty special. Like, one, he put on a phenomenal workout on no sleep. He cared so much. Like, he's a lock first rounder. And, the Bills, we just made the playoffs, but that's not like, when you're growing up as a kid, in my era is your era as a kid. Like, we had the longest playoff drought in all the professional sports. Like, we're not a huge market. The fact that he went through all that to show his commitment to the Bills to make that workout, I think that was one of the, like, all right, this guy's a little different than the rest of the group.
It tells you so much. Something small just tells you so much about a quarterback's character. I mean, Monis has gone through other quarterback meetings they've had. I mean, the year before with Mahomes and Kaiser and Trubisky, Watson, all of that. I mean, you don't know when the light bulb is going to go off, but that had to have been a moment like, okay, there is something special to this guy. And we can't forget that they went out on a limb. It's so funny looking back at the tweet that the team put out when they selected Josh Allen and seeing the replies. I mean, it was not what people wanted at the time at all.
See, but if you could have pulled back the covers, like if they could have pulled back, like nowadays when they show the combine interviews and all that, like if you got to know Josh through the process like the Bills did, it probably wasn't as much of a stretch as everyone thought. Yeah, to them, yeah, there's some risk. Like, can he jump up in competition? But they knew they were getting a 6'5", 240-pound dude with a cannon that can run, that is hyper competitive. You take a dude like that, like, no, they're not going to convert him tight end, but like that dude could play multiple positions in the NFL. And so to see that skill set and that the competitiveness is it to me. Like, I want to play with guys that are ultra competitive, and I don't care what it is. Josh got smoked in the match last year, and he's like on a mission to not let that happen again. You know what I mean? He's just ultra competitive, and those guys are lower risk. But I remember watching Brandon Beane, I guess it was probably 2019, either 2018 or 2019. I was watching Beane walk out with his two sons after the game. They were a lot younger then. And they were both wearing Josh Allen jerseys. And I said, Beane, I said the Beane family is all in on Josh Allen. He said, yeah, I know we are.
I mean, yeah, you're staking your career. I mean, everybody's career with that pick. And I mean, what a moment in his career right now to have to work through some shit, just overcome this mental block, whatever's going on. And I suppose you'd rather go through it now than January. And it's similar to last year, 7-6 last year, right? And then they figured it out late, so there's a lot of time still.
Yeah, for sure. And every season's going to have their ups and downs. You hope you win. You know, you love learning from ugly wins, but you know the Bills dropped these last two and they're expected to win and probably should have won. And so, yeah, I mean they're sitting there at this point, but I mean I'm far from panicking on this roster.
Yeah.
I mean the roster they have is solid, and you know a lot's been made about Josh's decision making and this and that. As you said with Manos explaining those, I think they're a little bit more nuanced of turnovers than the, oh my gosh, he's got 7 turnovers in his last 8 quarters of football, 10 quarters of football.
Tackle, what's next? Everybody should buy it. Kindle, hardcover, Audible too, I'm guessing, however you consume books. But just lastly on the book, Eric, what's a conversation that you had with somebody that I'm sure there were several that were jarring, that made you raise your eyebrows, but one that you're most proud of that's in the book that people will enjoy reading?
That's a great question, man. I'm trying to think. So, I talked a lot in that book about perspective and some of the challenges I've had in life and how things happen for you and not to you in life. And even though it could be a leg break, it could be divorce and child, things in life happen for you and not to you. And I've been sent so many screenshots from people like, man, I never knew this about you, or wow, what an incredible perspective. Now I had this going on and I can't wait to see the good that comes from this. And there's been so many cool moments. And we talked just before recording that, it may sell 1 million copies. It might sell, who knows, 10,000 copies. Either way, the feedback that I've already got has been so fulfilling for me that it's all good.
I love it. I love it, man. I cannot wait to read it, and I'm sure everybody here in Western New York will do the same. And so you're more than welcome. We've got some blood and guts book tour dates at Fatty and Mister's in East Aurora. If you want to tackle what's next out, come on out and have a beer.
Good deal. Let's do it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Eric. See you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure.